foundation of what HBFT is, what those concepts are. So this afternoon we'll look at a case and be able to kind of talk about how do we utilize all that stuff that we talked about this morning when looking at an actual case. And then we'll talk about supervision, do some stuff on self-care, and then we'll end with fidelity.
Okay, so we're going to try to fight the post-lunch coma and try to get you all involved in thinking. You're not moving, that part of the core training is over, but thinking. So each of you in one of the purple folders is a blue sheet of paper that says Matthew's family vignette on it, and it is two-sided. You only want the side that says Matthew's family vignette. It's shorter. It says Matthew's family vignette. Continued. You've gone too far. Go back to the first page. So we set this whole up in the idea of this is what it's like when we get a referral. So we're going to look at the initial referral right now and get a feel for the Matthews family. So basically, only read the front side. Yeah.
And if you haven't signed in on your PM time slot, don't forget to do that, or you won't get credit for the training.
Yes, that's important for everyone as well. Please head to the back if you haven't signed in, and do so again so that you can get 6 CEUs instead of 3.
Come up, but I don't think they'll open.
So they never come?
Be sure to sign in.
Okay.
Never signed it back either, but signed on the wrong line.
Alright, so now that we have read the first page, what do we know about the family? Yes, several incidents of threat and violence towards family members and punched holes in walls.
You asked what do we know about the family?
Yes.
Nothing.
They're
Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rican.
Bilingual.
They may not be.
No.
He is.
Same one.
They aren't.
Yeah, so what we know about the family is that there's a family to which Jonathan belongs.
Right.
Valid. Alright, so what do we know about Jonathan? And then we'll jump to the family. Yes. Also, we get a lot of comments, people are like, holy crap, he was in there for a year. This was a case I had in Philadelphia where a year was not unheard of. A lot of people were going for a year. The year was the max.
You guys remember those times here, right? I had kids that were gone almost 2 years. They're just, those times are over. You're lucky to get 90 days.
Yeah, I'm sure if I went back, it was nice to be over.
As well.
He's shown some progress enough for them to be planning for him to go home.
Right? So, we know he's showing progress and they're planning on him to go home. Do we know, what else, is there anything else we know? He's on medication for bipolar. Right. So we know that he's starting to make progress in the PRTF. He's doing better in school and he's showing improved behavior. Okay. What do you think or hypothesize about Jonathan and his treatment?
Maybe structure is important for him. Could be, but I think that's what he's showing improvement.
Okay, so maybe he's showing improvement in PRTF because there's some free structure there, and maybe there is at home. It's a good theory.
be on the appropriate medication.
Okay. So it's possible his behavior's improving because he's on like managed medication. We also heard that he might actually like the PRTF.
His triggers have been removed.
It's possible that some of his triggers are gone because he's not in the home. Okay. So what do you identify as the clinical issue that should be addressed here?
You know, the first thing that just popped into my head is independent living. And that may not be considered a clinical issue, but I mean, at 17 in the PRTF, where is he gonna go? Where is he?
Like
What is his family? What are his social networks? Because that's always concerning with children that age,
Right.
that they may be on the street.
Or culturally, maybe in that family, they stay till 25, just
Right.
depending on the
Yeah, which we don't know anything about either.
Right.
Okay.
What was going on in the home that it just recently has been sent out of the home?
So, like, since this is his first time and he's been gone, like, what was happening before that led to those violent outbursts?
You know, why was he successful, whatever that means up to this point?
I think I'd like to know if there's been visits home, like weekend visits, and were they successful?
Okay, so
So,
have you seen?
so this is, there's not a whole lot of, I need more information than what I've got
Yeah.
before I can determine what's a clinical issue.
Valid.
Taken.
I said the clinical issue appeals to me as the integration.
Yes.
He's got him home, so then.
Yeah, so we know he's not staying in the PRTF. Figure out how to get him either home or into independent living, wherever he's gonna go. So what are your own thoughts or feelings associated with what we know about Jonathan's situation?
I just want to use Jonathan's head. Who is he? I could assume a lot of things about who he is and who his family is, but I just want to know who does he think he is?
Right.
Was there any trauma?
Like, where did the violence come from? Is it witness violence?
Assessing trauma.
One thing that came to my mind was, just again, culturally speaking, some cultures, they want alternative, not medications, not PRTF, so maybe them being, he's second generation Puerto Rican, so did the family, are they okay with this being, him being assigned to, or signed up?
Yeah, like, was the PRTF their choice?
Yeah.
Or was it something else?
But how are they gonna respond to him being home? Are they gonna treat him differently? Is there gonna be that stigma of having that hospitalization for over a year?
Right.
You know, is he gonna be able to successfully reintegrate not just with his behaviors, but with their attitudes towards him and vice versa?
Right. So like, what's it mean for Jonathan that he was in the hospital? What's it gonna mean for the family that he's been gone for a year?
Well, it also is a generational, like with them being from Puerto Rico and him being, you know, whatever, and bilingual, he might be playing on different roles. There could be different views, of, you know, world views. They could be asking him to do translation, and there could be all sorts of conflicts that led to the frustration that, you know, came out in anger that needs to be addressed before he's integrated back home.
Are you gonna assume that he's coming out of his family of origin?
Right.
Or adopted?
I'm just saying that,
Well, I mean,
to assume that he's coming out of his biological family, the family of origin is,
Yeah, it doesn't specify.
it doesn't specify. You can't tell what the family's doing. You can't speculate as to what the family's going because you got no information. You know, the clinical issue clearly is about mood regulation or, you know, being able to cope with his anger. And you have to assume that the bipolar diagnosis is appropriate, which is probably the most overused diagnosis for kids anymore anyway. So the question is that your thoughts associated with this kid's story, you know, there's going to be a family piece of this, but some of that's going to be about 17.
Yeah.
Because in this case, she's posited over here about independent living. You got a kid that's been in PRTF for a year, you're going to put him in independent living on his own? Not likely. Not likely. That's just got failure written all over it. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, you put a kid from PRTF into independent living?
But it happens all the time.
Yeah.
But again, if you wanna signify failure, that's it. Those kids that go into independent living, they don't have the skills to do that. So, Job Corps is a possibility, but again, that's a pretty hands-off kind of
Who says he needs
operation.
job for?
Huh?
He may be on track to graduate, he may have a 4.0 GPA, we don't know.
Absolutely.
We don't know.
But the point is again, we have very little to go on with this. Your clinical issue has to be about the anger. I don't care where it comes from.
It almost sounds like our clinical issue right now is that we need more information.
Well, but and he's regulating his aggression, so it's maybe not even about the anger anymore, but that's what I'm saying. Maybe whatever the stimulus was that led to his aggression could have been environmental, and we don't know, and we might be putting it back in the same environment. So yeah, we need to figure out what needs to be addressed. Or maybe just his better coping skills, or who knows.
Right. To that end, turn the page over. Okay, so what do we know about the family now? You know more.
Clinically, not a lot more. I mean, you just got, my thought is, I still don't know exactly why he went into the PRTF. I don't know what incident pushed him over the edge. I don't know that is there a history of this sort of behavior. I can only assume so because you don't get into a PRTF unless that's kind of the last resort of placement. So there's grief loss issues. Even though it was leaving a violent situation, he still is without his dad, or his biological dad. Dealing with a stepdad, dealing with another son, the parenting differences, but it still doesn't give me a whole lot to go on as to clinically why he's demonstrating what he is.
Right, but before we hypothesize about anything, let's look at what we actually know. Like what do we know?
I mean, he was a victim of, violence, and also witnessed domestic violence. I think that's a pretty major factor in that now he's become violent, or had become violent before he was sent to the PRTF.
Right, so it's not like his behavior is completely out of nowhere. He saw it someplace first.
And was also directed at him to start his own relationship.
Yes, at some point he was also the recipient of violence. We don't know how many times before she took the children away, but we do know that he started to become violent towards the children. But we also don't know if he was violent towards Jonathan, if he was violent towards Ricky, or towards both, or if it was an isolated incident.
It also doesn't sound like he has a very strong relationship with his stepfather as far as disciplinary involved because mom won't let stepdad back on him anymore.
Right, so we know that there is a father figure in his life who's been there for like 9 been a father figure in the family for 10 years, but at the same time, he's not involved with disciplining of either Jonathan or Ricky. Is there anything else we know?
Little brother's starting to behave the same way, but she thinks he's gonna be even worse. So there's gotta be something.
Right. So we know that with Jonathan gone, that Ricky started to exhibit some of the same behaviors.
Mom blames Jonathan, but she thinks he was manipulating the system.
We know that Jonathan's mother used him as manipulative.
And that she's not ready for him to come back. Mom is not ready.
Yes, we know that mom does not think that he should be coming home yet. After a year.
They
A
may
lot of
have a
times they get
limited,
used to them, they don't want them back.
Yeah,
A lot of times the
she
parents
doesn't want him
get
back.
used to
It
them
doesn't
being
matter.
gone, they don't want them back.
Yeah.
they may have a limited support system because they moved from, well, at least the family moved from Puerto Rico at some point, and then they moved from somewhere else to Kansas. Don't know how long they've been in Kansas, but maybe they have limited support system, maybe a closed family system.
Well, she left, she's actually been here for about 10 years. Like, that's the idea. That she came, she met Dayton Senior, and she's been here.
But based on where she came from, she could still have limited family or, friends.
When he could remind her of her, ex and the violence, and power control and all those issues that now she's seeing in her son, and so, associates some of those memories, and I mean, there could be all sorts of issues with mom as far as, consciously or subconsciously, whether she actually wants him back or not.
Right. Which is an excellent transition into what we think our hypothesis is going on. Like, how much of Jonathan's behavior triggers something in his mom, so her response to him might have something to do with the violence that she incurred before. I mean, is there a reason that she views her son as manipulative as opposed to ready to come home?
Well, she says she's willing to do anything, but anything would be, I'm ready to bring him home and see how it works. So she's not willing to do everything.
Maybe she is, she's just scared. Not sure.
I don't see how she says that Jonathan's behaviors are impacting Ricky when he's been out of the home for 12 months.
Yeah, it's this idea of the power of Jonathan's behavior lasted the entire time that he was out of the home. Like, he was a role model to Ricky. Now he's gone, and so Ricky's trying to still follow that model. That's the belief that she has.
Well, and Jonathan may have been the male adult figure for Ricky, who's now trying to step into that, and if dad is violent and Jonathan is violent, Ricky may assume that that's his place. Well, especially if stepdad doesn't really discipline him.
And at this juncture, I mean, they've been separated from their mom and dad for 10 years. So I want to know more about just the parenting and the family dynamic in general. It's been 10 years, and Ricky was just 4. So, I mean, that's kind of a space of time. It's not to say that past violence didn't have an impact, but I want to know what's been going on in that 10 years, especially since we're seeing this behavior in Ricky as well. And he was 4 years old when the parents separated.
Right.
And her dad's rights still in place.
Sorry, say again?
Her dad's legal rights still in place, because that could be a whole other ballgame.
Actually, she ran away, so the father, she's kind of in protection, like the father doesn't actually know where the family is. The biological father doesn't know where they are.
There's a certain amount of pecking order with, in some cases with Latino Hispanic families. I guess I'm kind of curious, they're working with people of ethnicity sometimes. One of the stumbling blocks is knowing whether or not they're Americanized or if they're still living by their culture of origin. And I'd be interested to know, Mom and Damon speak Spanish, but they choose to speak English, and I wonder if Jonathan, if there isn't some disconnect between, some confusion with him about how that works, and I'd be interested in how the culture of the family as opposed to the culture of being Latino, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Jamaican, whatever. You know, I wonder what the deal is with that. That would be something I think that would be, initially, I would want to know what that is. I think the other is paramount, is the step-parenting piece is huge as far as what David's going to do with Jonathan or Ricky. So those are two things that I'd want to, you know, that's one thing I would be concerned about. Jonathan being Americanized and mom, you know, trying to be, you know, Americanized or whatever. I'd be concerned about that. I think they're traumatized. I think we need to deal with the trauma with Jonathan and Ricky both. Because Jonathan would have been, what, 6 or 7, and Ricky would have been 4 or something like that. So I think that's something to be said with that. Plus, I'd like to know, she mentioned the thing about independent living, I'd be interested about the launching phase. You know, what do they want to do? Is he scared to death of being out on his own? That's why, you know, he's there in the first place? I don't know. I mean, that's something to be considered. So again, I would hypothesize that he's been at PRTF for this period of time, and he's kind of going, okay, I'm going to be in an institution, so I don't want to take an institution for the rest of my adolescence and then step into adulthood. I don't know.
A lot of like theories and ideas of what's possibly going on there, and how much is the culture playing into it, into the way that each of them view their roles in the family, and then also what's the role of past violence playing now, how much is trauma still a part of the way that they're interpreting the things that are happening. So with all of that, what do you believe to be the clinical issue that needs to be addressed?
Parent-child relational.
Parent-child relational, like in terms of reintegrating Jonathan back into the family, or in terms of his relationship with his mom, or just
All of the above. I mean, really, I think that while it may seem to be a disservice to him right now to send him home with all this going on, if they don't have a clinical reason to keep him, he's going home, like I just said, mom's his legal guardian. They have to medically justify his stay. So he's gonna go home.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a huge deal. But more so, parent-child, step-parent-child relational issue. Is his bipolar diagnosis accurate? He's been in a he's in a controlled environment. Who knows what will happen when he goes home? So
it sounds like you identified a couple of different clinical issues, one being the parent-child relationship, the step-parent-child relationship, the co-parenting child relationship, and then also the
validity of
the diagnosis.
I think that it's probably more of a PTSD diagnosis than a bipolar diagnosis, because witnessing a trauma is just as
It has just many lasting effects.
It's going to be about the trauma. What she's saying, I think, is accurate, but I think the primary issue is the trauma. The trauma of being victimized, the trauma of move, the trauma of that. That's the issue.
Whose trauma are you addressing? Everyone's?
Jonathan, Ricky's, and Rita's.
Okay.
Because Damon is trying to pick up the pieces and has not been allowed to do that by Rita's choice. But I think the underlying issue, the clinical issue, is the trauma. And the fact that they're all victimized. She doesn't want him to come home. My suspicion is because she sees her ex-husband in him, and she sees her ex-husband in Ricky, and she doesn't want to do that. That'd be my guess.
Well, so it sounds like we're kind of in agreement that the two main issues are the parenting and the trauma? Okay. So what about your own thoughts and feelings associated with the family story and how they influence you? I love it when everybody turns to the back and starts reading, because I love watching people's faces as they read. That's how I know if people have reactions, because they're all, usually when they read manipulation, they're all.
that would be something I think to really bring up, is explore her feelings on that further, because that, I don't know how you manipulate the system when you're in a PRTF for over a year. I don't know how that works. Unless she feels that, I'm sorry?
At 17, like, I see how it's manipulated.
Right, because he wants to stay there.
Well,
But that's a normal
hear from a lot
response
of
for
parents.
families in this situation. They think that because they have made these changes, and it's about that systems theory of mom feels comfortable in her understanding of her child in the role of bad kid. And so she has not yet embraced the possibility that he has made positive changes, because then she has to accept that and move forward in that, and she's not comfortable yet. So it's a typical response when kids are coming out of PRTFs for families to say, you know, they're just fooling you, you know, when they get home, they're gonna act the same, you know, they just know what to do because they wanna get out. And I mean, I've heard it a million times.
And I think if it would be 60 days down the road, I think that would be more valid. This is a year out. I don't know why that sticks with me so much, but I've heard that too. Like, he's just faking it. He knows what to do to get out of here. He's gonna come home and he's gonna act a fool all over again. But this is a significant amount of time to be in
But
a
if you were
psychiatric
faking it,
facility.
you probably would have done it
And maybe
earlier
he's
on.
scared about coming home too, because he does know he can control his behaviors and his emotions in this environment, and he couldn't before, and all of those things may still be a factor at home because we don't know that mom and brother and stepdad have made any changes in the home either.
Well, what I'm concerned about is where was the family services while he was at the PRTF? I mean, I know this is a vignette, but
No, it's
you would think that work would be done with the family while the child is at the PRTF to plan for them coming out.
Do we have anyone that works in a PRTF or has worked in a PRTF? Want to talk about family services that may or may not take place when kids are in a PRTF?
They're supposed to be in the office, seeing their child at least once a week for family therapy if they can be there more. Once the child is stable enough, we encourage them to start taking them off campus for a couple hours, see how it goes, come back, and we talk about it. Overnight, see how it goes, talk about it, what we need to change or work on. But yeah, I mean, parents are scared to have their kids back in the home. They're scared they're gonna fail again. And that's where I do out of home is the kids that have been in the PRTF still want our services because things have been working, we've been with family, and then we've fallen in home. So,
Other experiences of providing in home or working with the family when kids are going to transition or while they're in the PRTF? I know so when I was in Topeka working at the agency, it was always encouraged, but I had families that didn't have a car. So they may see the kid once or twice while they're in a PRTF. So they don't have a way there, a way back.
we have gas vouchers available, and I know that some of the MCOs have that available to the family, that they know when they're coming to the facility, they will give them your bus pass over. So we try to make every opportunity for the parents to get out there, but a lot of times families see this as a break. I mean, they're just glad that there's a little chaos going on right now, and they can, there's been many parents that have not seen their kid a couple times while they're out there. And there's really nothing we can do besides report that to MCOs when they're calling and case managers or whoever's involved.
There's a lot of kids that are in PRTFs that were in foster care also, and very rarely do you see a foster family that has a kid go to PRTF and then take them back.
Right.
And so there is no one other than, the case manager involved.
And they leave the PRTF and go to a new home.
They want them fixed.
Well, yeah,
As a general statement, their parents want them fixed.
And
If
they
they
want
come back in a
them
penny
fixed.
blemish, they're out.
They want the kid fixed, they don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with everybody else in the home. So there's nothing else to fix.
I was just say I've been doing FFT now for just 3 years, and I think that every family, every situation, I just view from a completely different lens now, and part of that kind of even talking about like kind of our own worldview, it really forces you to really watch your reactions, because we see language or words where the moms say things horrible about their kids, or the manipulation statement. That's a trigger for most of us in here, and it's time to step back and talking about the noble intent behind bad behavior, and that we don't it's dangerous to come from a place of looking at behavior as, oh, this mom just doesn't care, this mom just doesn't want their kid back. What's the reality of that statement? This is a mom who is scared. This is a mom who's been victimized. This is a mom who maybe feels powerless or maybe feels like she can't keep her son safe. And so we make all kinds of assumptions about what's wrong with this mom and why she doesn't want her kid back, when that sets us up to fail in family therapy. And so I think that my lens is just, it's FFT is like it brainwash you a little bit. So and force you to think outside of really how does your own personal values or worldview affect what you think of that family and their behavior. And I think that's a good place to start.